Hello, you're listening to and watching the Kyani Hour. Thank you for joining us today. We're happy to have you with us. I have a guest with me today, and his name is Dr. Ron. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
And thank you for being here. Appreciate that.
Glad to be here.
I'm going to invite all of you to join our chat room right away because the doctor has information that you may not have and you might want to hear about as we talk about the Kyani products today and how they've affected each of us and could possibly affect you in a very positive way. So you know that if you're watching us, you're on pat.utahvalleylive.com. And if you'll just join us in the chat room, then we'll be able to see your questions and be able to answer them. So I'll give that out 2 or 3 times during this hour, but we want you to be part of what we're doing and have some interaction here. So with that, shall we launch into this?
You bet.
I think you got involved in Kyani, I think it was August?
That's right. A little more than a year ago.
About a year ago. And you have kind of an interesting story. Several of us have had the same kind of story, which amounted to, are you kidding me? Not one more thing. But because of your background and your medical experience, which I want you to share a little bit of that, you had a really prove it to me kind of attitude, as I recall.
Oh, yeah.
I think I probably called you 75 times, and you're saying, well, let me look some more.
That was just the first week.
Okay. It's going to be that kind of a day, is it?
Nah.
Okay. And so you have been in this time, through all this time, and I know you've had a really good reaction. So let's go back to when your background and then how you got involved in the Kyani products and some of the things that happened to you along the way. You're just a young pup. And so I'm sure you didn't expect anything to happen to you. Positive. You were already positive.
Yes, I guess. No, before going to medical school, I worked at an herbal pharmaceutical company where they tested herbs and for their potent ingredients. I was a biochemist and worked there. And then I went to medical school and practiced for 12 years after medical school, doing kind of the old-fashioned family practice where I would deliver babies and do simple surgeries.
The whole family.
The whole family. Then as you approached me on this, you told me about these great products that supposedly help everything. And as a physician, I was a little leery of really buying off on 1 or 2 or maybe 3 products affecting a lot of disease processes. But it became very clear to me after looking into the products as to why they helped. It just took me a while to get
hard-headed, just so hard-headed. No, I really appreciate that, and I haven't said this to you before. I've hesitated doing that, but I really appreciated the fact that you took so much time to do research. You really got on the computer and you researched these the products. You researched what was out there in the marketplace and other products. And then as you began taking them, you began seeing some positive reaction. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, no, that's correct. One of the things that I realized as I started to look at the 3 products and tried to figure out how they were working from a medical, perspective or what's the mechanism of how they work. I was reminded or thought of several things. And one is that as I was in medical school, they taught us very early on that almost all disease processes are linked in some way to inflammation and the damage caused from free radicals. And when you start to look at that and know that it doesn't matter whether it's an arthritis or a heart disease or diabetes or emotional issues, psychological issues from depression to aging issues like Alzheimer's, memory, dementia. All of these things are linked in one way or another to inflammation and the damage caused from free radicals. So if you can
when I think of inflammation, doctor, I think of a sprained ankle. I can see that. or if I've twisted my hand or my arm, I
Yeah.
can see it swell up. So, okay, that's inflamed. I can see that. I guess all this that goes on inside of us that causes so much, is it the same type of inflammation? I think of swelling, but that
Yeah.
can't be what it is.
Well,
So,
that's our natural response to think of, some injury that gets inflamed or swollen, or maybe if you have a bad sore throat, you get some glands,
mhm.
that are swollen in your neck, and you think, oh, that's inflammation, which it is. But there are actually 5 different types of inflammation that occur, and that's maybe a discussion for another
Well, let's
day.
talk about it a little bit because I think
But
people, the more they know, the more they can recognize in their own body and then perhaps do something about it.
and that's very true. The your body has um, your body has 5 different what we call inflammatory responses. And on the surface and to the lay person, they're going to look about the same. It's just on a lab test or when you're looking at a cellular level, are they really different? And I don't know that that's really a pertinent discussion for right now.
Okay.
But I think it is important to understand how some examples of how inflammation affects other
Well,
things.
that's really what I was talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
And for example, heart disease. Most of us know that heart disease is caused from cholesterol that sticks to the inside lining of your arteries, and then that plaque builds up, and then it clogs the artery, and then you have a heart attack, or if it's in your brain, you have a stroke. But most of us don't realize that inflammation on the inside lining of the blood vessel, the cholesterol can't stick to the inside lining of the blood vessel unless it's inflamed, unless there's inflammation there. And so you can actually address the very root issue of heart disease. If you can get rid of the inflammation on the inside of the blood vessel, then cholesterol can't stick.
Is that hard to find, or do people not know it's there? Or, I mean, why do we have so many people with heart attacks? And
You,
so much more now seems than years ago.
yeah, it's just been over the last 5 or 10 years that we came up with and identified a test that could measure the inflammation on the inside lining of blood
Okay.
vessels. And so it's kind of new in our ability to test for it, but we've understood that it's been there for a long time.
Okay.
And that's how it is with a lot of diseases. We know that inflammation is a part of that process, or we know it's a large part of it's the damage caused from free radicals. But we don't have really good tests to identify the inflammation associated with all these different disease processes. But if we had, a lot of time, I could certainly talk about inflammation and how it's associated with all these different disease processes. That's one
Okay.
example
Okay.
with the heart disease. But another example that's maybe worth talking about is that of diseases that are associated with what's called an autoimmune process.
Okay.
Autoimmune processes are where your own immune system starts to attack something that's good. Usually, our immune system attacks things like bacteria and bad things in our body, tries to fight them and get rid of them. But for some reason, sometimes our body starts to attack itself and destroy the good tissue or the good things. Most thyroid problems are associated to autoimmune. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune process. MS is an autoimmune process. There are a lot of different autoimmune processes. Most arthritises are some form of autoimmune process. Well, what happens, for example, with MS is inflammation starts to occur on the nerves, and the wall of the nerve has this wrapping, this insulation around it.
Okay.
Inflammation attacks that, it starts to destroy that insulation around the nerve, and then you get nerve damage. Well, then it's inflamed and irritated. You lose the insulation around the nerve, and then, of course, the nerve can't function well, not to mention how painful it is to have
So that's why,
had that
because it's
loss.
on the nerve. Is that why it's so painful?
Yes, it's each nerve, you can kind of think of it like a wire that has a little coating around it, a little
Okay.
insulation
Okay.
coating around it. Um, each nerve is like that. And in MS, the autoimmune process destroys that coating around the nerve so that it ends up being a bare nerve, kind of
Just
like
a
a bare
raw, it's a
wire.
raw nerve
It's a
then.
raw nerve. And
And
that's,
sensitive to all the things that would
oh,
be
yeah,
any raw nerve, whether it's your tooth or your fingers or your
anything
knees or
else.
whatever it is.
That's right. And not only is it
Hmm.
sensitive or painful that way, but the nerves don't function well. If they don't have the insulation, then they can't conduct the signal down the nerve the way they're supposed to. Well, so how would Kyani affect something like MS,
Okay.
or heart disease? Well, if you can fight the inflammation associated with MS and decrease the inflammation around the nerves, then you can, at a bare minimum, have better symptoms, less severe symptoms. And it's very likely that you could either slow down the disease process or really help solve the underlying issue of the inflammation around those nerves.
So, well, we're going to get into the products in a minute, because let's come back to MS then,
Okay.
and solve that when we start talking about the problems a little bit. But I have a question, because over the years, I used to be a hand model, among other types of modeling that I was doing, runway and stuff. And my hands were not sore for a long time, but they began to change shape. And what in the world caused that? And then the pain came. Then I couldn't make a fist. And then I got on these products, and now I can make a fist, and there is no pain. But in the process, look what happened.
Yeah.
And so, is this happening in inside of our body, all over our body? People that have arthritis or any other inflamed type thing?
Yes, those types of things are happening inside all of us all the time. Some of us
Is this
have,
called aging? Be careful how you answer that.
it could be called maturing.
Okay.
No,
I'm maturing.
it's part of the natural process that our bodies go through.
Okay.
But some people are more predisposed to having it settle in their joints and having arthritis.
So is
where,
that so? That's what happened. That settled the
yeah,
arthritis settled in the joints.
you have in each joint there's a lining of cartilage which acts as a smooth surface for the joints to work against and
Okay.
to work on. Well, the cartilage got really inflamed. And as it got inflamed, it started to deform a little bit. And that's why you get kind of the knobs or the twist in your finger, is the inflammation in that joint starting to change actually the structure of the joint. And then as that happens, it becomes more and more painful because they don't work
Was
like
it
they
something
used
I
to.
ate? Was it something I didn't do? Was it a lack of
No,
nutrition? What was it?
no, we really don't understand why in some people arthritis gets triggered off, in them as opposed to other people. We know there are genetic factors. We know there are other factors, maybe use or environmental issues, but we don't understand all of the reasons why it starts.
Would that be
Uh,
true in the case of MS or other things that happen? We don't always know why.
that's correct. We don't always know why some people have one disease process triggered off in their body as opposed to another. Why does one person get MS and the other person gets Parkinson's? Or why do you get arthritis and someone else gets high blood pressure or whatever? But we do see these common underlying issues of inflammation and free radicals causing damage to cells that cause or trigger off these different disease processes. And so, although we don't know why one person gets one disease over another, we know it's linked to genetics and some other things, but we don't understand the specifics of
Okay.
each process. Uh, but we do see that common issue of inflammation, and that's one reason these products were so impressive to me, is their ability to fight inflammation and their ability to fight the damage caused from free radicals. it then became very clear to me why, 2 or 3 products, somebody could be saying, oh, this helped my arthritis like it did your hands. Or someone else could say, my MS feels better. It's more controlled and I feel like I function better. And someone else with diabetes says, oh, my blood sugars are controlled better. In medicine, that's kind of that's a foreign thought. We have thousands of medicines, and we have, 100 just for diabetes and another bunch just for blood pressure, and we use them just for specific things. And so you have to have a kind of a mind shift that says, okay, I'm going to use 2 or 3 products to affect hundreds of diseases rather than hundreds of products to affect one disease. It's a whole shift.
It is a shift.
But it does, if you give it some time and thought and look into how the products work, it becomes very clear and understandable why it can affect so many processes.
If you would like to know more about Kyani, we're going to be spending the rest of this hour talking about it, but if we can call and answer questions for you, we'd be happy to do that. The number to call is 801-362-9552. 801-362-9552. We do have a chat room up this morning. You're welcome to ask a question, make a comment. We'll be happy to answer questions or comment back. And we're going to be here and try and answer if you call and have specific questions. We'll perhaps have to give general answers. We certainly don't want to say we cure everything, but in my case, I can tell you I am certainly a lot better than I have been. And I'm going to push Dr. Ron a little bit now to tell what happened to him. It wasn't major. Mine was major. It didn't take but a month to get off all of my medications for diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arthritis, and some side effects that were so wonderful. I lost weight and I've got all this crazy energy that I haven't had for 20, 30 years, which I'm convinced is probably illegal at my age to have this kind of energy, but it's certainly wonderful to have. You didn't experience that because you're a lot younger and you're in good shape. So it took you a little while, but you have changed some things that you were doing.
There have been some subtle changes. When I first started taking Kyani, I was taking a multivitamin. I took a baby aspirin. I took some fish oil, just from the grocery store. And I was doing those preventative things, but I wasn't taking any prescription medicines to treat any specific issue. What I dealt with, maybe physically, was a little bit of the aches and pains that come as we get a little older. When I first wake up, my body would just be a little achy. I'd feel like I was slow moving. I'd just take a few steps until I felt like I could, get my feet to not be so sore and my legs to loosen up a little bit. Or sometimes at a meeting, somebody would shake my hand and it would hurt, a little arthritis or something in my hand. And it kind of hurt when they gripped it hard, or opening a jar, little things like that. Sometimes I dealt with something called restless leg syndrome, where when you're trying to go to sleep, your legs twitch and cramp and they just won't calm down, and it keeps you awake, and it's really annoying.
You keep running.
Yeah, you just feel like you're running, but you're supposed to be sleeping. You're trying to sleep, or even while you're sleeping, it's still happening, and you don't get a good deep sleep, a good stage 4 sleep. Well, I dealt with those things, and I noticed after a couple of weeks, it's probably around 3 weeks of taking Kyani, it was just this subtle thing. I remember going to meetings and people shaking my hand, and there's a couple of men that I know at church that would shake my hand and it would always hurt. They just real burly, but it didn't hurt. Yeah, it didn't hurt afterwards. I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. My hands are feeling a little better. Or when I'd get up in the morning, I felt like, hey, I can walk, and it's not that stiff, slow going get started in the morning. The restless leg issue, where I used to have it 4 or 5 times a week, started to lessen, and after being on it a few months, I had this restless leg maybe once a month or less. I mean, very rarely. And I thought, this is pretty cool, that these little things are making my quality of life a lot better.
Good.
And was noticing a significant improvement that way.
We have a question, and I happened to run into a situation a week or so ago where somebody was telling me something similar about this, a tumor that was somehow on the maybe under the arm or on the side, and it was just a mass of blood vessels. It's not malignant in any way, but the person talking about it was sharing the information about someone she cared about a great deal, and it's a young girl in her early 20s, and maybe something would she might have to lose an arm because of this thing. What on earth would cause it, and how would you get it to shrink? And then the big question is, would these products work on that type of situation? I mean, tumors are masses of blood vessels, right? Or I'm going to play doctor. That came out entirely wrong. What is a tumor? Let me go back and do it that way.
Tumor, in a general sense, is a cluster of cells that are growing abnormally that shouldn't be there. It can be from anything. You can have a tumor of fat. You can have a brain tumor or a tumor in any organ, liver tumor or whatever. And then some of these tumors.
I had a friend that had one here. It wasn't a goiter. It was a tumor. Yeah. Is a goiter a tumor?
A goiter is an inflamed thyroid gland
here
in your neck.
Okay. Yeah. So this was on the side of her neck, his neck, actually.
So tumors can be anything from very benign to where they'll never affect you negatively and will just be there, versus tumors that become malignant, and then that we call them cancers, and then they grow so fast and out of control that they create life-threatening problems. And I'm not certain of what you're referring to with this contact that had a mass of blood vessels, but there is a type of...
Well, they call it, I think it would be referred to as a tumor.
Yeah. There's a type of cluster of blood vessels, kind of like a tumor. We call it a hemangioma. And hemangiomas are where normally you may just have one blood vessel. Now there's a whole cluster or snarl of blood vessels that are there. And by themselves, they aren't usually a life-threatening issue. But what they put pressure on, or what they tangle themselves up with, can then affect whatever they're around. So if you have, it's not uncommon to have these buried deep in a muscle, and then that muscle doesn't function very well. Or if it's by a cluster of nerves, then it can put pressure on the nerves and become very painful, where the tumor itself isn't necessarily a problem other than what it's affecting, what it's next to, what it's putting pressure on, what it's wrapped around, what it's somehow affecting.
If it continues to grow, then something's going on.
Yes. And there are different treatments that we've come up with over the last few years for this from a medical perspective, where they can go in and kind of clip off or plug some of those blood vessels so that they wither up and go away and they don't work as well. But these products, what happens, here's the bottom line of how these products may help that. These blood vessels, this cluster or tumor of blood vessels, put pressure on other things, whether it's muscle, nerve, or whatever they're next to, whatever they're touching. That pressure causes irritation and inflammation. That inflammation is what causes the pain and the discomfort. Okay. Almost all pain is caused from inflammation. And so...
Because that goes back to the nerve.
Yes.
It's affecting the nerves wherever the nerve that is within the body, or on the outside of the body.
That's right.
Okay.
And so you could have one of these blood vessel tumors, this cluster of blood vessels, and it could be putting pressure on something and causing a lot of irritation. These products would then help calm down that irritation. I don't know that these products would necessarily make that tumor shrink up, the blood vessels shrink up and go away, but it definitely could affect the symptoms that those tumors are causing. The pressure that they cause and the irritation that they cause wherever they are, and calm down that inflammation.
Then we're right at that junction where I'd like to say, okay, tell us why. I know what's in these. I know what they've done for me. I mean, after 14 years of, diabetes, high blood pressure, and all of that, in 1 month, everything was normal, and I was off of 4 medications, and I have not had a medication anywhere near me for the last year and 14 months. And so I want everybody to understand how this works. And I haven't had my ounce this morning, so I get to have it.
So you're going to take it. Well,
I'm going to have breakfast with
so
everybody
I got to
this
take
morning.
mine at the same time?
You do. Of course you do.
All
We have
right.
to be healthy while we're on this show, for goodness
That's
sakes.
right. That's right.
This is 1 ounce. In the large bottle, there are 30 ounces, and that's a month's supply. And it has vitamins and minerals, Alaskan blueberry, 11 super fruits along with that. And I began to lose weight because probably for the first time in years and years, I was getting enough minerals and vitamins that I simply wasn't hungry. Everything was balanced. Plus the blueberry. It's the Alaskan blueberry, and it grows wild on the tundra. And it's quite different because of the temperature. Is that right up there? It's so
yeah, it has to do with the climate. That is really good.
Isn't that good?
So let's talk about the Sunrise. When I first heard about the Sunrise product, I thought, oh, not another juice. There's so many juices on the market.
Don't make me laugh.
And yeah, sorry about that. But I thought, how can we have so many different juices on the market and they're all claiming to be wonderful product? And then as I started to look into it, I saw that the juice primarily affects inflammation and the damage caused by these free radicals. We call that an antioxidant. And we've known blueberries to be really powerful antioxidants for a long time. But the Alaskan blueberry is more than 10 times powerful in its antioxidant effect than the domestic blueberries that grow down here. And so they've taken that as their main ingredient in this juice and then added these other super fruits to it. And what it's done is it's come up with a juice blend that is a really powerful antioxidant. And one of the things that's hard to do is, how do you compare one juice product to another? How do you compare apples to apples, or maybe blueberries to noni, or something like that? And they have this rating value on how powerful an antioxidant is. It's called an ORAC value. And an ORAC value is a unit of measure that measures how potent an antioxidant is.
So ounce for ounce.
Yeah, ounce for ounce.
Okay.
You know, how
Compared
many
to this ounce and that one and that one and that one.
That's right. How many ORAC units are in an ounce of this juice versus an ounce of another product?
Okay.
And so I started to look up this ORAC unit, this standard unit of measure that'll allow me to compare one product to another. And what I learned is something quite interesting. I looked at a lot of different products, all of them I could think of, online, and pulled up their ORAC rating. And I saw numbers like 2,000, 3,000 ORAC units per dose or per ounce. I saw sometimes as high as 4,000 or 5,000 ORAC units. And I thought, that's pretty impressive. You can really accomplish a lot with fighting antioxidants like that. And it's no wonder a lot of these products have a lot of good benefit to them. But then I looked at the Kyani product, and it had more than 35,000 ORAC units. And I thought, wow, that's almost 10 times the average ORAC unit that I was seeing in these other products. And then it became very clear to me why this product is superior than any other juice that I've looked at, is because that ORAC value was so high. And that's why I think you get such a better response with this than you do with other products.
Well, my response was almost immediate, within a few days. And then by the end of the month, I was off of all medications because of these products. And yet now I've met people who they hold on and hold on and hold on to all the stuff going on in their body. It takes them 6 months before they seem to get feel the effect of these products. I went through a detoxing. I thought I had the worst case of flu in the world after about 4 days on these. And 10 days later, I realized it wasn't the flu. I was detoxing. My body was throwing off toxins. After that, whew, I felt great, and it hasn't stopped yet. It's just gotten better and better. But it's interesting to realize that, everybody really does have a different system. And it seems to take some people just a lot more time to feel the difference.
And that's really, really the case. My experience has been, as I've talked with people, and what I would expect to see happen is that the average person is probably not going to have that dramatic experience of a week and feeling like, wow, I'm a ton better. I think after 3 or 4 weeks, they'll say, hey, this might be doing something. I think I can feel a little bit of a difference. Maybe I have a little better energy, or maybe I'm sleeping a little better. And it may be so subtle that they don't notice it unless they're really looking for specific things. They're looking for what's happening with my sleep pattern, or what's happening with my aches and pains, my energy. But what I would expect would happen is after that first month or so, and they say, yeah, this is probably doing some good, I'm going to give it another try, that after another month, they'd say, this is really making a difference. And that by the third month, they'd say, wow, this is really great stuff. But still, there's going to be those severe cases of arthritis, or these people with chronic pain and chronic fatigue, or things that just really suck away their energy and drain them, the fibromyalgia. Those types of disease processes may take 6 months or so till they feel a difference. And that's one of the frustrations with any product that you take, any medication or a product like this, where we want results today. We want it now, and it may take a long time.
At a meeting last night down in St. George at Penny Decker and her husband's home, Micah Kagi was there. And she asked him, she called me last night after the meeting because they had a great crowd. And a number of people came and just were so grateful for the news and wanted to get started on the products, which is great. But he suggested for Penny personally that she double up on some things, or even triple up. And I have found that there are people that have been taking the Kyani products, and they stay right to the 1 ounce and right to how many drops, 20 drops, and 3 little omega-3s. Yeah. And they're not across the board for everybody. And so I'd like you to just say something about that, because first of all, these don't interfere with the other medications that people are taking because they're all natural products. Is that correct?
That is correct. They don't interact with other medications that I'm aware of. The only maybe small exception to that is they could thin your blood just a teeny bit.
On Coumadin.
About like a half of a baby aspirin worth. I mean, it's a very small amount. But if somebody's on a blood thinner, they would want to monitor that Coumadin level or whatever their blood thinner is, just to make sure that they stay in a good range. Probably would not be a problem.
One of our distributors in the Colorado area had got a terrible case of gout and was well into it before I said, double up. Because I've gone through that, and I drank half a bottle, and then that was one day. And then the next day I drank another half of the bottle, but I knocked the thing out in 3.5 days. And gout can be 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you're so painful that you can't walk, you can't talk, you can't go to work. So I just want to address that a little bit, because they're giving you a standard that works for most people across the board, but not for everyone. And if you're working on a serious situation, double it up. It's not going to affect anything. It will clean you out if you drink a whole bottle, but you get rid of a lot of impurities. Yay! Okay. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And just like any other medication, we adjust the dosage to meet the individual's need.
Well, that's true. Based on weight and what the situation is.
Sure, and we may start a blood pressure medicine, and if it doesn't lower their blood pressure enough, we'll increase the dose. We'll
Okay.
add a little more. Um, everyone, our disease processes are different. Rheumatoid arthritis has a lot more inflammation associated with it
Yeah.
than just the aches and pains that I was experiencing. You know, after a hard round of exercise or something where you feel a little
Poor
stiff,
thing.
yeah, boo hoo. And so you would need more to fight the more aggressive disease processes. Back maybe to the MS. MS is a very aggressive disease, and I wouldn't do just 1 ounce of sunrise if I had MS. I would do probably 2 or maybe 3 ounces a day on a regular basis just to help fight that inflammation a little better. Uh, so that it is nice to know that you really can't overdose on these.
You can't.
You talk about taking a half a bottle. Your worst case scenario is you saturate your body in its ability to use it, and then you're maybe taking some extra that's not doing a lot of good, but
You
you
can't
can't
hurt.
hurt yourself. And so sometimes it's very worthwhile to double up on one product or another, depending on what specific issue you're trying to target.
Let's do a couple of things. I want to mention before we run out of time about these really three products. These are kind of sister products here. And so let's talk about the Sunset, and then let's talk a little bit about the cost compared to prescriptions. Also, I'd like to comment, and I wish somebody would tell me why our culture doesn't do anything until we're practically dead and bleeding at the eyeballs before we do anything. They say, well, I'm healthy, I'm fine, I'm not going to do anything. But other cultures throughout the world take preventative products to keep from getting sick. And it starts young. It starts with children and young adults. And they don't have anything wrong, but they want to prevent anything happening. We seem to wait until we can barely breathe before we do something about it. So I'd like to, if you will just talk a little bit about this, the Sunset, the gel, because I love these. This is how I sleep. I don't know if you can see that at all, but they're little gel caps. Can you see that? Can
I
you
can see it just fine.
Can you see that? Okay, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about price and how to get involved as a customer or as a distributor.
Yeah. The Sunset product that you're referring to here, the fish oil gel capsules.
Known as omega-3s?
We have known, yes, for a long time that fish oils are very high in omega-3s and are very beneficial. I was taking fish oil before I heard of Kyani. And so we've known that they really contribute to good health and prevention of disease. But not all fish oils are created equal. There's a whole spectrum, if you will, of omega-3s and their potency or how effective there are. There are some that are pretty effective and some that are very effective. And not all products are going to be the same. When you go to the grocery store and just buy some fish oil, that's not necessarily going to be the same quality.
And sometimes people do look for the least expensive thing when they're out looking, and that's not necessarily the right thing to do. On the other hand, I know very expensive prescriptions that haven't helped at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, cost is not equated to quality all the time. And certainly true when it comes to fish oil products. It's hard to read a label and know the quality of omega-3 because all the label is going to say is it contains this many milligrams or whatever of omega-3s. And so you have to, read the literature, kind of dig into the fine print. But when you do that with the Kyani Sunset, it has some of the highest quality or the upper end omega-3s that are available. It comes from the sockeye salmon, wild sockeye salmon in Alaska. And we know that as we test those omega-3s, that they're of the highest quality, certainly higher quality than any of the other products that I've looked at.
Does this have the tocotrienols? Did you hear me say that?
Hey, pretty good.
That's very good. It only took me a year.
All fish oils are almost all fish oils are packaged with vitamin E. Vitamin E acts as a preservative to help keep the fish oil from going rancid. And vitamin E's are also a good antioxidant and have some omega-3 qualities. So it's kind of a natural fit to package with a vitamin E. But not all vitamin E's are the same. If you look, there are at least 6 different classes or subtypes of vitamin E, and under those 6 there are other types.
20
And
or more.
yeah, there's a lot of different vitamin E's. The most common form of vitamin E is called a tocopherol, and it's a good product. I'm not knocking tocopherols. In fact, there's tocopherols in the Sunrise product. However, there's some research that's just cutting edge right now on a type of vitamin E called a tocotrienol. And what they've learned with the tocotrienols is that they are really effective at preventing cancer and fighting cancers. If you want a fun experience, go to a medical website like a PubMD or WebMD and type in the word tocotrienol. And what you'll see is lots and lots of studies that are being performed with tocotrienols on how they prevent and treat all these different issues. Well, this is the only fish oil product that I'm aware of that uses the tocotrienol type of vitamin E supplemented with the fish oil,
So
the
it's really
omega-3s.
good.
So it's very good. I think that those two, well, there's 3 issues with this. The quality of the omega-3, the fact that it has tocotrienols in it, and which is the highest quality of vitamin E, and then the fact that there's no mercury in this product. Almost all fish oils have traces of mercury, and when you read the label, it'll say just that in it. This contains traces of mercury and has all these warnings and cautions.
Yeah,
but this is independently tested by an outside lab and is guaranteed to be free of mercury. And that's impressive to me, especially if you're, for some reason, need to double up or take a little bit more. You don't have to worry about the mercury factor. So the typical person will take 3 of these each night, 3 of these little gel capsules.
Sometimes at dinner. I take mine right before I go to bed because my legs don't quit running. And so if I take them right before I go to bed, somehow my legs get the message and I go to sleep. And the most peaceful sleep, I think that's been something that almost everyone has experienced.
Yeah.
Better sleep.
These omega-3s contain all of the essential fatty acids that your body needs for good brain and neurological health. And so that's why it can help with sleep patterns, things like restless leg, which is a neurological issue, neuropathies, any of your psychological issues, anxiety and depression, memory issues, Alzheimer issues, dementia, all of anything that has to do with brain or nerve function, this is really going to enhance and help it function better. So it's a great product. You were mentioning earlier, and I want to get back to this kind of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. You know, too often we wait till we're on our deathbed to do something.
It's true, and then it's people go too far. They wait till they're too sick.
Yeah. And then you're always trying to play catch up. You're trying to get on top of and solve a damaging problem that's already occurring. That's one of the reasons this whole product kind of came about, is this tribe of Eskimos they found had so much better health, and they wanted to know what's part of their daily life and diet that keeps them in good health. And they found that these blueberries, wild Alaskan blueberries, and the wild sockeye salmon were staples in their diet. And by taking those on a regular basis, I mean, this tribe ate these products from birth, up. And as a result of a lifetime of taking this, they had less heart disease and stroke and cancer and all these issues. And so I'm a firm believer in prevention, and that's why I take these products. I don't take it because I have diabetes and high blood pressure and severe arthritis or whatever. I take these because I don't want to get
have everything.
diabetes. I don't want to get high blood pressure. I want to maintain good health and circulation. And so, so I think even for the healthy individual, this is the ideal product to help maintain good health, as
And
opposed to just,
I certainly agree with that. I said, this is my food storage.
yeah.
Whatever else, this is food storage. I want to address one of the questions and regarding diet and nutrition in general while taking these products. And Mary Louise Zeller and I were talking about this the other day, and she said, you cannot continue eating Twinkies, and I'm going to add chocolate cake and all of the other things that we eat, and expect to have them be 100% working for you. You do have to use your good mind. And then this week I had Sydney O'Reilly on with me, and she brought some chocolate cake pudding that was chocolate, whole wheat, and agave. That's it. The best thing I ever ate. I could have eaten the whole. I've asked her to bring some next week, so we're going to eat it on camera next week. But you do have to think about what you're eating if you want these to work the best way they possibly can.
Certainly. If you think of say an athlete, and an athlete doing its event without the proper gear. Let's say somebody that doesn't wear their helmet when they're supposed to wear their helmet. Well, you keep banging and causing the problem. It's going to take a lot more effort to try to fix it. If you put a helmet on, then it's easier to fix. It's easier to fix what's going on inside. That's kind of how it is with the diet. Poor diet just assaults our body with free radicals and the poor nutrition that makes it very hard for our bodies to heal. These products maximize or help maximize your body's ability to function and run well with ease. But if you're always insulting it with poor diet.
That's a good word, insulting it. Insulting your body. I've insulted my body. Have you? We've all have at one time or another, but we're learning. We're learning. And this is a great step to take. I want to talk about these two products, then I want to go to cost. So let's do that. Let's talk about the Nitro FX.
Okay.
And what is it triggering for us? I start with the Extreme, which is a fairly new product. I take this first thing in the morning, and I've been swimming in the morning, and so I take this first, and then I take this throughout the day. But an athlete who's working out during the day and training, they take this all day long. Tell me why.
Because it's a great product. Nitro FX.
Well, something a little bit more scientific than that, maybe.
Nitro FX is a concentrated drop that you put underneath your tongue, and it absorbs directly into your bloodstream. Then you swallow the rest, and it's absorbed also in your stomach. But what that product does is it stimulates your body to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide production decreases the older we get. And nitric oxide is important because it's a governing regulator of circulation and cell function. There are literally hundreds of studies that show that the importance of nitric oxide on the cellular level. You can eat healthy foods, you can have good healthy stuff in your bloodstream, but it has to leave the bloodstream and get into the cell where it can function. And nitric oxide is required on the cell wall for a lot of nutrients to get into the cell and for the cell to function properly. And one of the biggest contributing factors of aging is our decreased production of nitric oxide. And so these products stimulate and maximize your body's production of nitric oxide. The first product, Nitro FX, which I think is this one here. Nitro FX is primarily made from the root parts of the noni plant. There are other things in it, but that's the main ingredient. You don't get the nitric oxide stimulation from the fruit of noni, like the noni juice or something like you would the fruit. That's right. It has to be the root and the bark and the plant parts, and that's what this extract's made from. Well, it really stimulates nitric oxide production. They had such great success with this that they did further research and said, okay, what other things will complement nitric oxide? And research showed that uh, coenzyme Q10 and niacin can really work hand in hand or synergistically, where you get a 1 + 1 = 3 effect. You get a better effect when you take those things together. So they made this Nitro Extreme that has niacin and the Q10 product in it. And that just super, made this a lot stronger. I was going to say
I can
supersized,
feel
but
it
it makes
within
it.
in 15 minutes of
Yeah.
taking it. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Either one of them, but I really get a boost from the Nitro Extreme.
So certainly anywhere you have blood flow and blood vessels, Nitro FX or Nitro Extreme will affect. That's everywhere in your body because it affects blood flow, not only in the big blood vessels, but down on the capillary or the smallest blood vessel level.
So the whole body.
So the whole
and the
body
brain.
will benefit from the Nitro FX and the Nitro Extreme. And athletes
I
take
actually
it.
started taking this first in the morning and then this because this seems to open everything up. And then anything I take after that is moving faster and going better.
Yeah, and
Does that make sense?
some people really feel like that, like this one kind of gets you jump started through the day with a big boost, and then this one just maintains or keeps it going for a while, and that certainly, can make sense.
And that you can purchase these individually, but I have found they work better together, synergistically.
That's
that if you
right.
take them together throughout the day, that you have a better chance of feeling better all the time,
That's right.
time. So now,
If you have a wonderful recipe and you decided I really love this recipe, but then decide I'm going to make it without one ingredient,
take out the eggs.
yeah, I'm going to not add the flour this time or whatever. You're not going to have the same
won't be the same
results. And these really work a lot better when they're all taken together.
Let's talk about the cost of these. For a customer would be $120 a month, $30 a month, $130 for a customer. They don't have to build anything. They don't have to go share it with anybody. They just take it to feel good. And then compare, and then the distributor is 120, and they are wanting to build a business, and then they share. We don't do a lot of selling. We talk about sharing the products, which is what you hear us doing here. But then compare these to some of the prescriptions that you have ordered over the years. And boy, I'll tell you, I got off of over $300 worth of prescriptions in 1 month, and this is under 150. So I had a savings to start off with right there. Plus, I changed my diet, so I'm not eating as much, so my grocery bill came down. Mm-hmm. It's a good deal. You want to comment? I'll let you talk now.
Let me talk now.
Maybe. We've got about 6 minutes.
The bottom line issue with cost, it's nice to say, well, how can you put a price tag on your health? And a lot of pharmaceutical companies base their whole philosophy on that one thing because they charge outrageous amounts for prescription medicines.
So they know a person needs to get well. They want to get well.
Sure. And if they have the one drug that helps this cancer, whatever, they're going to charge thousands of dollars per dose, and so, it's easy for me or a physician healthcare provider to say, don't worry about the cost. What is your health worth? Just buck up and pay it, kind of a thing. But the bottom line reality is you have to consider finances. We aren't made of money, and it can be difficult to come up with $130 in a month. But the company has structured its company in a way that allows you to offset those costs by sharing it with others, if you share the product with others. And so very easily, you make the initial investment and say, look, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna come up with $130. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna see what happens with me. As you notice those benefits, you tell a few other people and they start to order. Then you get a little bit of compensation back, and it offsets the cost. Yeah, if you're a distributor.
Then it's 120 and 130 if you're customer.
That's right.
Okay.
And I would recommend being a distributor, even if you don't plan on developing a big business. You can at least share it with other people and get some sort of compensation and
If you're
for
short on
sharing it.
money, yeah, if
Yeah.
you're short on money. Well, I did that 14 months ago. I got involved as a distributor, and I saw how jealous you were this morning when you heard what was going on. I worked hard for the last 14 months and pushed a few people around me to work hard too and encouraged them to take the products and to feel as good as I feel. And I was awarded for my hard work with a $40,000 Audi.
That's so cool.
And I'm headed there. All the paperwork is done and everything is taken care of. I'm going to go pick it up in about an hour and a half. So it's really been fun. So that's one reward. And then on top of that, I've been compensated with commission checks on my hard work, and the people under me and the people above me have helped. This is a company that really works together. And Dr. Ron has been great about going with all of us and talking on the phone and sharing his information. And that's how we work this. You're never alone. Would you say that's true? And that is
Oh, yeah.
different. Yeah.
And there are always resources to call. I'll get calls from a distributor saying, I have somebody that has a question about this. Will you just talk to him for a minute? And I'm glad to visit with people and help them understand things there.
The number to call if you would like more information is 801-362-9552. 801-362-9552. I just want to let you know also at noon today and every day, I have another show. It's the Pat Sheranian Show. How original is that? Is that just
That's pretty good?
Just totally original. And we talk about all kinds of things and issues pertaining to Utah Valley. And so again, pat.utahvalleylive.com, or I'm on the radio at the same time at KHQN 1480 on the AM dial. And we'd be happy to have you again in the chat room with us, or listening on the radio if you're in the Utah Valley area and can hear us there. Have you picked us up yet, or have you been working?
I've been working during those hours.
Well, quit so you can go to the radio and listen to us.
Maybe I just need to turn the radio on in the background.
Turn the radio on. Well, we have some interesting people today. Mary Keith Boyak's going to be on with me, and we're going to talk about a book that she has written over the past 25 years. She just had her 80th birthday, and I think what a treat to get your book published and be 80 years old. And the cover story of the local newspaper, half the newspaper, half the front page was all about Mary.
Oh, that's great.
And this book, The Coat and the Crown. So we're going to be talking about that at noon. And then we'll be again next week. You want to come back and do this again?
I'd be glad to.
We're going to be on again next week talking about the Kyani products. And we're available over the weekend if you would like to get hold of me or get hold of Doctor. Call me, and I can push that number forward for you to call him. Don't want to give that out over the air because he'll be deluged. But we can answer your questions. We'll certainly try. I've enjoyed the products. Ron, it's been fun to work with you.
Thank you.
I've got some of my family involved in the products, and we have all experienced success. A few people have taken the time to write me emails and thank me for the product, and I don't remember anybody ever writing me a thank you note in business. Maybe when they got hired, they got a thank you note. But it's been very, very rewarding to have people be so grateful for having a product that they feel better. So thank you again for being with us, Dr. Ron.
Thank you for having me.
And my engineer, producer, director, good right hand, Kent Vorkink, keeps us on the air and keeps the microphones tuned up and the lights on, and we're grateful to him. So we're grateful for that. And we'll be back and be with you later today. And meanwhile, have a great day. Be safe and be healthy.